Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. It's time for a new broadcast, a new series. Here on Thursday evenings, we're broadcasting the iRacing GR Buttkicker Cup on Thursday evenings here. First round, of course, at the Circuit de Ledenon in France, which is one of my favorite new tracks for iRacing. Recently added to the free content roster. I think it's massively underrated. I'm Reese Gardner, of course. Joining me in the comms box is Scott Rankin. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick as per usual, with Jay Kennedy pressing all the buttons and bringing these live pictures to you on all of those platforms. Scott, Ledenon. It's a circuit that has had plenty of interesting races over the course of its time on iRacing. A bit of a lesser known track in the French countryside, plenty of elevation changes and not much room to rest. I think that's what defines this place.
Oh, doesn't it? What? It's up, it's down. I kind of like talking about it as a mini Portimao. It's probably one of the better ways to describe it because it really gets that sort of feeling about it. Look at how tiny it is. Normally when we're zooming in, the track's still expanded. You know, it's still feeling just about all of that picture in terms of things. But have a look at the layout. We're going to be going counterclockwise from left all the way back up and around in terms of things. And that second corner right there, I've just been refilling myself in terms of my French lessons from high school. That triple gauche means triple left in French. That's about the one thing I remember from that class.
Yeah, of course. I took a bit of French in high school as well, so I'll be able to engage my pronunciation at points around this place. But 15 corners packed into a 3.1k circuit. I mean, honestly, this is a track for the slower classes of cars, isn't it? The corners come thick and fast. There's tarmac lining the edges of the circuit. It is very easy to get an off track around here. And I think with not much space between those corners, we're likely to see some big action and big moves into particularly the hairpins at Virage du Pont and Le Cavalet, maybe La Cuvette at the end of the lap as well.
The real thing that's about this lap is actually turn 11 is quite critical, and turn 14 is quite critical in terms of the Toyota 86. With that smaller engine capacity, Reese, it's actually about those particularly turn 14 because it's a long uphill straight off of that corner. Turn 5's not quite as bad. It's not really as aggressively uphill, but it's about getting turned in nice and early and have that car push straight so you can get back on the throttle. It's nearly when you're transitioning back to the throttle like a TCR, like most momentum cars, really, it's about getting back on there, but it drives kind of like a lower momentum car. You're actually going to see these cars bottom out as well, down through turn 5, because there's just so many bumps as the cars sort of kick around the bottom end of that corner in terms of things. Really, really difficult. One of the trickiest things about this track is actually 1, 2, 3 in terms of things, because the car the whole time with the weight transition on the Toyota 86, it's not incredibly balanced. As soon as you get on those brakes, there's next to no weight over those rear wheels. So the whole time you're really trying to keep that rear end underneath you. And at the same time, you're just like, I want to get back to the gas. I want to get back to the gas. I want to get back to the gas. Momentum car, those sorts of feelings. You actually want to miss the apex at turn 1. That's the fastest way around this track, which is, you know, when was the last time we talked about missing an apex as being the fastest way to take a corner?
Yeah, I think the triple gauche at the start of the lap is one of those corners that's a lot like Istanbul Park's turn 8. You've really got to gauge your line in there, and missing apexes is the fastest way around. So this is the format for this series. It's basic iRacing deal here in qualifying with 8 minutes and 2 laps per driver, solo qualifying, a 15-minute sprint race, no pit stops required. It's just hard racing for 15 straight minutes, and there's possible changeable weather, including rain, because the Toyota GR86 is one of the cars that is rain enabled for iRacing's new weather system. So hopefully at points through the season we'll get to see some wet weather action. At the moment here at Ledenon, it's looking bone dry, pretty simple stuff. 21 degrees Celsius air temperature and 23 degrees Celsius track temperature, and it's looking like it's cloudy. Not much chance of precipitation out there with a minute left in qualifying.
Yeah, there's not going to be a huge deal here tonight. I've been monitoring the weather on this series ever since Tuesday, and it's just sort of been about that. So a little bit of a dry time of the year here in France as it currently stands. But yeah, look, I mean, we're going to be looking forwards in terms of this series. I'll rattle off sort of the schedule for you here. So this week's Ledenon, next week's is Brand Hatch. Winton Motor Raceway is going to be round 3. That's going to be an interesting race. That's actually going to be really, really exciting. Motorsports Arena Ockersleben, Interlagos, Sebring, Daytona Moto, not the regular road course, not the NASCAR road course, the Moto road course. Long Beach Street Circuit, Road Atlanta Full Course, Netterton 300, Sandown and Mount Panorama. Oh, that's a good finish to the calendar.
Yeah, certainly is. What a way to end the season here. And of course, Interlagos is also the moto layout, so a chicane coming out of the final corners. So there's some interesting layout choices for this series, but also a good amount of free content. Of course, Snetterton and Oschersleben among the tracks being added to the free content roster for this season. So we should see some good turnouts at those tracks. But qualifying's over. It's time to go to the grid and start racing. Andre Schumacher is on pole position. Matthew Brunt, one of the Australians in the field, starting second on the front row. Wolfgang Bosen and Paul Saragi on the second row of the grid. Then we go to Oleos Michali in 5th place alongside Kevin Balthazar. Jingyun Pan starts in 7th alongside Juan Zanetti. Yongshi Hei starts in 9th with Vitaly Mafazzini rounding out the top 10. Last driver to set a qualifying time is Braden Paver in 11th spot. Issam Irabi is going to start in 12th with Johan Fierdaus and Jacob Early on the 7th row of the grid. All on his lonesome at the back, Christopher Dew. It's a small 15-car field for this. And I think that's round about the kind of field size that you'd want at a cramped track like Ledenon.
Yeah, it sort of just feels about right, those numbers. Not a cracking split in terms of lap time. I'm getting the feeling this track's just a little bit warmer than some of the sessions that I was looking at and looking at times from yesterday. Pole times that I saw were down in the 33.6s yesterday, only a 33.9 capable. It's a difficult problem because remember those first 2 laps as well, the car's really sort of unsettled. As the fuel burns off, the rear end of these cars become more and more unstable. There's just not enough weight. You're just taking weight out of that rear end of the car. Cannot understate how important that is. Short pacing lap here too. We're down in the final sector. This is just before turn number 11. Have a look at this corner when we start rolling off the grid as well, because this corner doubles back and then it nearly triples back. It's a really, really late apex corner. The best line to get in is it's sort of, you just want to kiss the curb on the entry and then you want to start coming back in. It's very reminiscent of Magny-Cours and the hairpin in the middle of that.
Yeah, indeed. It's a blind entry as well. You're coming over the crest of a hill, so look for some incidents at this corner potentially. Now, I'm seeing Johan Fierdaus, a message in the InSim text chat. If I can decipher that message, I believe he thought he was registering for a practice session. So let's see how well Johan Fierdaus goes in this race. Probably not quite as prepared as he would like, but they're already coming out of the last corners here. We shall see whether or not we get a clean start as the field goes to the green flag. Hard on the throttle for Andre Schumacher as we get this race going. Single file into turn 1 to start things off here. Andre Schumacher leading by a good margin. It is back in the field where the battles are really being had. Johan Feerdaus versus Issam Erabi side by side coming through Triple Goshen. We already have a car off, unfortunately. That is going to be Oleos Mihaly, who's turned the Castrol livery Toyota around. Nice to see a little bit of WRC and Super GT in this field. Genuine Pan, meanwhile, looked like he dropped from the server, and he has reconnected and started from the pits, so we have all of our cars out on track at the moment.
Yeah, I can tell you, just having a quick look, Wolfgang Boosten picked himself up on off track as they come out of turn number 6. He ran just a fraction too wide. You can get up on those curbs, you can't run all the way across those curbs, so he's definitely picked up an off track. I think he's gotten away with another one there as they come back up the hill out of turn number 9 as well. So they're going to crest the hill here. Schumacher's going to lead the way. Man, Schumacher leads the way in Europe. Boy.
Oh boy. Oh, Paul Saragi with a little bit of rear end sliding there, battling hard with Kevin Balthazar here. This is the fight for P4, and they are side by side through the corner. Easy does it on the way down to the last hairpin of the lap. You get driven into the road here as you come up the hill onto the start-finish stretch. Another car off. It looks like Yongshi Hei has unfortunately had a spin at the final corner. He manages to get going himself, but fights continuing here at the end of the first lap. More or less clean start for most at the front of the field.
I can tell you Schumacher was very, very quick in that final sector, put 0.3 of a second over Matthew Brunt all the way back down there. And now have a look at the lines start to change as everyone got a little bit of tire temperature now, starts to settle in. Bit of a replay. This is going to be what happened to Olahay. As, rear end got a little bit away from him, and then just an overcorrection into the snap there as well. But you can just see the weight transition in that car, Reese. It's constantly oscillating, and it's so soft, the suspension in these cars, it takes forever to settle down.
Yeah, indeed it does. Question from Dean Hunt in the broadcast chat. Is this an iRacing series or a league? This is official. This is the official Toyota GR86 Buttkicker Cup from Ledenon, first round of the 12-week season here. So you might be seeing a completely different roster of drivers week in, week out, which is certainly going to make things interesting for us here in the SimSpeed commentary box. Things have calmed down a bit at the front. Schumacher still leading in Europe, as you say, Scott. It's been a long time since anyone could say those words. But Matthew Brunt doing a good job of holding off Wolfgang Bosen. We keep an eye on board here with Paul Saragi as he tries to get back past Kevin Balthazar. Late on the brakes, probably a bit too late coming into the final corner, and a little bit of wide running there. Unfortunately stymieing that run there for the number 11. There's battles also further behind. It looks like a 3-car fight for 7th place. Vitaly Mafazzini at the front of this pack. Braden Paver and Johan Feerdaus up behind him. Bit of space between them as they come into Triple Gauche, but I think when they start getting into the twisties in the middle of the lap, things will really compress.
I wish I had a packet of twisties for the middle of the lap around here, I'll tell you that much. It'd be so nice to reach over through the sim. Watch the cars as they come down the bottom of the end of this hill here into the run to turn number 5. Watch them as they compress. There's a bunch of bumps here. You got to be kite in that curve. Just look at the car. Bounce, 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 bounce. And the whole time you've got that foot pressed to the floor as you try and get the power down. This is another tricky corner here because sometimes it looks exactly like the corners later on the lap, like turn 11. When I was testing here, trying to learn the track, I could not differentiate turn 6 from turn 11. And turn 11's got this dastardly kink at turn 10 just before it. They look so similar, and it's about getting yourself ready. It's a really, really difficult track the first few times you do laps around here. Once you get it sorted, there is time to be found just about everywhere, including the curbing on the left-hand side at the exit of turn number 9 there. You can use all of that. You touch the gravel, that's where you pick up the off-track.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for incidents. Speaking of, Wolfgang Bosen, I think, picking up a slowdown potentially. Either that or he's had some trouble out on track. Looks like it is a slowdown for Wolfgang, so he's fallen back down to 5th. Kevin Balthazar promoted to the podium, which gives a little bit more incentive for Paul Saragi to try and catch up to to him, but we have noticed that Saragi has been a bit over-aggressive in the braking zones. Maybe he'll have to dial that out. The gap for the lead has not increased. Kevin Balthazar actually setting the fastest lap here as he chases down our top two of Schumacher and Brunt. It looks like Brunt a little bit faster on lap 3 here, and the gap for the lead is starting to close.
You know what I'm really enjoying, Reese, and although we're not seeing any specks of rain on the windscreen at the moment, just having a look at the difference when we first climbed into this server in terms of cloud cover. Have a look at that iRacing weather model in the background, because the overcast conditions, they've fined up a little bit at the end of qualifying. Track temp is actually up about 5 degrees Celsius in, what, 7 or 8 minutes worth? That's the real power of the new weather system, and it's going to move around like that throughout the season. Don't forget, Brands Hatch next week. Going to Britain. What's Britain home of? Wet racing.
Oh, it certainly is. Hoping for grey skies and a bit of British drizzle there. Looks like a move incoming for the lead here. Here comes Matthew Brunt on Andre Schumacher through the kink, coming into the hairpin. Oh, fantastic move. He actually did really well there. Both of them did, to give each other requisite room. Matthew Brunt getting the inside line and capitalizing. He is going to lead at the end of this lap if all goes well for him in the final couple of corners. And look, that little bit of side-by-side action has brought Kevin Balthazar right into the fold here. Better exit from the last corner than Andre Schumacher. Could there be a move?
Yeah, potentially, and this is one of those tracks where really racecraft strong drivers will do well. The car and track combination is phenomenal for it. Okay, I didn't necessarily get to his inside, but I forced him to cover me. Now I'm going to get to the outside, pick up a little bit of momentum, look for the crisscross everywhere. These cars work so well to it. Look at the curve that Balthazar was using at the exit of turn number 3. Gets all the way back to the left. There's no opening down here at turn number 5, but now he's going to double back and try and pick up the throttle. Gets blocked a little bit of a whack to the back end of Schumacher, and now Schumacher's coming under an assault. It's Kevin Balthazar who's on the ascendancy. In the meantime, Brunt just skips clear.
Yeah, Brunt's doing very well now that he's in the lead. He's consolidating that pace, getting ever faster. Kevin Balthazar, look at how much he took out of Andre Schumacher on the previous lap. 1.5 seconds and a little bit of change too. This is going to be interesting coming through as we keep our eye here on battles further back in the field. Vitaly Mafazzini and Braden Paver. We saw Braden with a very big move around the outside at Triple Gauche earlier on in this lap, probably a bit too deep in the corner, and unfortunately he hasn't been able to keep that momentum up. It's actually falling back right now, but our top 3 battles shows no signs of slowing down here with 7.5 minutes on the clock. We are halfway through.
Yeah, you've mentioned it a couple times, that exit off that last corner, there's sort of 3 different ways to attack it, and it's how you attack the brakes, how you attack the curbs, how you attack the turn-in point. The biggest problem is you have to get the car pivoted nice and early, but at the same time, you just cannot stab the throttle. What that does, lifts all the weight off the front end, you push wide, you pick up the gravel. Well, you may not as well have gone for that early on the gas kind of setup. And have a look at the different lines as they come through Triple Gauche as well. It's going to be Schumacher who gets a little bit tighter at all the apexes of the corner, but keep your eyes on Brunt's exit speed. Schumacher cannot just match it. He's closing all the way to the apex, but Brunt is just so much better off.
Yeah, you've almost got to plan for the final exit of the complex there at the opening turns. The track blends to the right a little on the exit. If you can straighten up the run through there, that sets up the rest of the lap very nicely. It seems like Andre Schumacher has not quite been able to get the momentum he needs. Balthazar all over the back of him here through the dip. This is almost flat out through this corner, and then heavy braking zone into this uphill hairpin. Got to try and keep as much speed up as you can, and it looks like Brunt is getting the better exits here. He's got a lot of experience here in this Toyota GR86, has Brunt, and I think barring a massive error, I think he might just be able to keep this lead, but Schumacher is looking for every apex, isn't he?
Schumacher's what he's doing really well is getting as tight as he possibly can in. Now, for in a bigger car, I'd say Schumacher's lines look that little bit better. But the problem is the success of Matthew Brunt, what he knows well and what he thinks about well in terms of this car is he's thinking momentum. He's shifting his apex a foot, 2 feet wider at the absolute most, probably not even 2 feet wider, but it's just allowing him to do two things. One is get back to the power a little bit earlier. Number two is carry a fraction more momentum. Watch the run down here through turn 1. This time through, Schumacher's a little bit wider at turn 2, then gets narrow again, and then has to drift out wide. And have a look, it's that third apex. So even though Schumacher's quicker through the first two, Brunt's getting so much better drive off, and the straight where he can really maximize, he's focusing on that exit. It's exactly how he got to the lead, got the momentum, set himself up nicely. Now he's disappearing.
Yeah, as we've seen plenty of times before, this is the run. Meanwhile, speaking of runs, it's still on between Maffezzini and Paver, with Jacob Early now actually trying to make a move on these guys. Jacob has a bit of damage here to the front right, and he's going for it. That's a massive dive at the hairpin there. He gets by Vitaly Maffezzini, was in 7th at the start of this lap, now back to 9th. Goodness me, the Italian having a bit of a rough time out here.
He is offline, he looks slow, he's not necessarily been the quickest. The problem for me is the two guys that have just gone through on him were definitely quicker, I think, if you have a look at their raw lap pace, but they've been a little bit scrappy, and that's what actually got Johan my apologies, Vitaly through and in ahead of these guys was mistakes from the other drivers. He's now settled in, and I think Maffezzini just had another wobble as he got down there into turn 11.
Yeah, well, now it is the battle of the Aussies versus the Kiwis. Jacob Early here in the KSR liveried car, trying to catch up to Braden Paver. Looks like the incidents that Early had before, remember, he started in 14th place. He's one of the drivers who didn't set a qualifying time. It seems like his race pace is right on it here, picking up a tiny bit of slipstream coming into the opening corners, finds the turn 1 apex a little earlier than Paver does, but there's no room to get by. It was almost a change for the lead as well from what we're hearing. Matthew Brunt still keeping Andre Schumacher and Kevin Balthazar behind, but have a look at this battle for second and have a look at this replay. This is coming into Triple Gauche, Scott, and once again, we see Andre Schumacher finding the apexes a little better than Matthew Brunt does, and they were side by side at turn 3, but tiny bit of contact.
Yeah, that could have ended really, really bad for them both, because they were so loaded at that point of the corner as well. And that piece of contact, it's only going to be fractionally different. They're both off in terms of things. But if you have a look again, Schumacher's just deep. One of the oh no, Johan Fudas. Well, I think he's turning this into a practice session if he thought this wasn't earlier on. And the other thing is, Schumacher just checked up Balthazar majorly at the run down to turn number 11. It's forced Balthazar off the back end of things. I reckon Brunt on the last time by that was all set up by... Yeah, Brunt's wide at the last cornering, and he's not quite getting the drive he's looking for. And have a look at Schumacher. Schumacher picks up the gravel there as well, Reese.
Yeah, they're pushing very hard here. It's 2.5 minutes to go. I'd suggest 2 laps remaining on the ticker. It seems like now is the time to really get your eye in for what your position's going to be at the very end. Brunt leading by a second at the moment, and Schumacher, I think, has to start looking at his exits here. His entries are certainly down pat right now, but it's the exits where Brunt is gaining.
I'd say Brunt's gone. I think that one's just gone. What I'm looking for right now is if I'm in Balthazar's shoes, I've got to harass Schumacher at the braking zones. I'm just going to put it in his mind that he's going to cover them. Then I'll move back to the outside of the corner and really look for that switchback. The track is perfect for it. Lots of these long corners with different sort of styles of approaches, each of them quick in their own manner, but you've got to force him to cover you, force him into a mistake, and that's how he's going to get this move done. The difference as well, Balthazar's hanging on to third gear the whole way down through there. Probably could pick up 4th. It's probably worth a half a tenth. There's not much in it, but what he's doing is creating better turn in at turn 8 at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, and turn in is the name of the game here at Ledenon. Is so twisty. There's so little time that you spend on full throttle. You need a car with a responsive front end, and you certainly get that in the GR86 Cup car. A very loose rear end, which of course can turn on you at any moment, but we're about to get the white flag here.
He's wide. Oh,
yeah.
He flipped it.
Take it easy. Matthew coming out of the final corner, get the win for Australia as the white flag flies. Andre Schumacher still up behind him. Could there be any move made from the Germany, Austria, Switzerland club driver?
You know what's going through the back of my mind is this season gets longer and longer and longer, and we get into some of these rain-affected races. When are we going to see it? Oh, Schumacher! Schumacher got on the power, quite aggressive there. He's running wide. Some mistakes have crept in over the last couple laps for Schumacher. I'm just waiting here, Reese, for who's going to be our first Bradbury in the rain.
Yeah, this is when we get rain later on in the season. It's an inevitability. It will be very interesting to see who comes away the best in this series, but it's one of the last proper acceleration zones here before the run down to the end of the lap, and I don't think there's much that Andre Schumacher can do here. As long as Matthew Brunt keeps it clean, keeps it stable, he's going to come away with the win here. Up the top of the hill, will there be any big moves made?
Oh, I'm just waiting. You know, part of me sitting down and going, this was awesome. Can I have another dose of this? Because we're running out of time. We're running out of corners and sort of the last braking opportunity now. Schumacher's not going to quite get there. What I'd sit back and say at the end of this one is I've seen mistakes from all of these guys here. Brunt sort of got clear a little bit, made a mistake, brought these guys back into it. Schumacher's made a number of errors. One of them let Brunt by, but Balthazar's made a few as well. So it's not been clean. It's been scrappy from all of these drivers, but Brunt's looked the best.
He has, and it's the run to the start-finish line here for Matthew Brunt. It is the finish line. Checkered flag flies. Matthew Brunt is your winner of the first round of the GR Buttkicker Cup here at Ledenon. Andre Schumacher and Kevin Balthazar completing the podium. It was a good, clean race between those three. Schumacher getting the fastest lap right at the end. You got to think what might have been for our pole sitter.
Yeah, I mean, he was quick, and the other thing I'll notice about that race as well, track temp finished around 30 degrees Celsius, so it picked up. So it was about managing the car and managing different grip levels. The grip levels in a 15-minute race changed so significantly, and we didn't see a drop of water. Imagine what happens when we induce a little bit of that rear getting away from these drivers.
Yeah, indeed, where they search for grip, etc. Well, that's the gap at the end. Half a second to Andre Schumacher, Matthew Brunt up top. Balthazar, Saragi, and Bosun will round out the top five, with Juan Zanetti coming home in sixth. A nice consistent race from him, from 8th up to 6th. Big run for Jacob Early. He managed to get by Braden Paver in the end, from 14th to 7th for Early. Vitaly Mafazzini, though, well, he started in 10th, held 7th for quite some time, but he couldn't hold Early and Paver back. Oleos Mihaly, unfortunately, from 5th to 10th with that unfortunate spin coming through the opening turns on the opening lap. Yongshi Hei finishes in 11th with Johan Feerdaus. A couple of crashes on the way to 12th spot. Jing Yun Pan, unfortunately, missed the start thanks to a connection issue. He does take the checkered flag in 13th place. Issam Erabi and Christopher Du will retire from this round here in 14th and 15th. So that is going to conclude the racing portion of the broadcast, and I think the broadcast full stop. Scott, an entertaining race, plenty of things to think about coming out of that round, but we should be looking forward to next week as well.
Yeah, I think rain is definitely in the offing potentially next week at Brands Hatch. Brands Hatch is another really, really good, interesting track and car combination. The one thing I like about Brands Hatch is, even though it's narrow, I don't like GT3 racing. I think they're just a little bit too big. F3 can be okay because they're a little bit narrower. Toyota 86 Mazda Cup, that sort of style of stuff fits very, very well around there. Lots, again, of long corners, doubling the car back, making sure you got the braking zone right. And the big thing here is 50% brake bias, low weight in that rear end. You've got to be aggressive on your brakes, but it's a very slow on and off of the brakes is sort of a very specific kind of thing. If you haven't gotten involved, next week, next Thursday night, 7:15 p.m. AEDT, which will be the last week of Australian Daylight Savings Time as well, I think. So it'll be get into it, because these cars are just a bundle of fun.
Yeah, indeed they are. Make sure that you get in there and sign up. The GR Buttkicker Cup is open to pretty much all license levels on the iRacing service. Well, that's going to bring things to an end. Proceedings for tonight come to a close. Thanks very much for joining us here on SimSpeed TV on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. As said, we will be back next week, and then later on next Thursday night will be the ODSE Australian Sprint Car Championships. So a big roster coming up for next Thursday. I'm Reese Gardner. Big thanks to Scott Rankin for joining me in the comms box, and to Jay Kennedy as well for